Hey friends, welcome back to the channel. I'm Dale, and welcome back to the table where we do tarot. After the last reading that I did, as I was putting the cards away from the Sacred Rebels Oracle deck, um, that is by Alana Fairchild, which was who I was talking about. And I don't know that I ever actually said it. I was just saying what good energy she has. So she was the creator of this deck. And as I was putting it away, this beautiful card kind of made itself known. And I thought that was really a beautiful answer but I couldn't like restart the video and include that because I had stopped it. So, um, but I felt like it had a beautiful message for where we were like leaving off at the last reading. And so I left it out so that we could start this reading with it. And it's card number 25, Release the Dark Wound, Let Love Live. Now, there was supposed to be a full moon today, but when I went to outside this morning for a walk, I was expecting to see a full moon and I saw like a crescent. So I know that we are in eclipse portals or an eclipse season, but I did not know that there was going to be an eclipse. So I'm guessing that there was a lunar eclipse. I haven't really heard it talked about, but I did see that instead of looking at a full moon, it was like looked like it was waning. So I want to go into the book, The Sacred Rebels Oracle. Okay, there it is by Alana Fairchild. And I want to find the meaning for this card. Okay, and right under this was out because of the last reading, but it's eclipse. All right, and the card under it is pace. Let's see. Let's actually, all right, let me take a look at what is kind of in this stack the way that we have it. So I feel like this is kind of just continuing on with the energy that we were at last time. And so eclipse makes sense that it's there, but then pace, we've got a snail and we've got walls and transformation, past and projection. Okay. And then that leads us back to common ground. So what I see happening when it comes to these cards being coming out like this, it's that there when an eclipse happens, it's something that's very different from what's normally happening. Though it happens, I think, like two different times in the year. There's like solar eclipses and lunar eclipses. And because I'm not an astrologer, I just listen to what other astrologers say, and I don't listen to it on the regular. But I understand that eclipses are powerful transitional times, and it's so hard to bridge that gap in between what people are saying about what's going out in the heavens and what that's like in the walking waking world. All right, and so that transition is often seen more in retrospect than it is in the moment. It's like when they tell us about things that affect us that we can't see, like blue lights or just constant Wi-Fi and things going on in the environment. When they say that during shifts of technology, oftentimes it creates things like pandemics because the body is like altering to a new energy that's going on. It's like when they switched over to 5G, they say that that was around the time of quarantine, years ago. And so it's hard to know when things are just natural, like if there's some sort of natural thing going on. The fact that they can go back in history and know that there was a certain astrological alignment that was going on when our country kicked off into civil war, and that there was a similar alignment within the past like year or so, is like if that matters, how can we identify it, or what do we do about that knowing that it matters? I think the answer is always the same, and it's that the only universe that you live in is the one inside of yourself. And it's so like difficult in a world of mirrors where I don't think that we're supposed to see a reflection, because then it creates this like whole world of judgment and marketing and economy and stuff like that, that's based on the fact that we can judge ourselves. And that's, the market is like, you want to be more like these people. And this is sort of this perpetual cycle that doesn't improve our society. It doesn't improve our health as people when it comes to like all aspects of our health. It's like you might want to get on a health kick to work out and feel better about yourself, but is it for vain reasons? Probably in a certain sense it's woven in for that vanity because it's what you're programmed with. So when it comes to this like differentiation of what eclipse energy means. It's like it's kind of where one thing is crossing over another and you're trying to figure out is like the moon is still there just because there's an eclipse. It's like the shadow of the earth. If I'm right about this, it's the shadow of the earth getting in between the sun and the moon. And what that is representative of, or what we can take it to have meaning for, is like what's getting in the way of our full self, right? It's like, where are the shadows crossing over to where on the inside, the moon probably would feel, if it had feelings, right? It would probably feel the same. It might not, I don't even know if it would know the difference of like that it would be looking out and saying like, oh, there's a big shadow crossing over and I can't see the sun as fully right now, right? But we wouldn't like it wouldn't necessarily feel different in and of itself. And that's the thing. I'm trying to make sort of a metaphor or a comparison to the fact that when we're in our actual body, everything kind of always feels the same, even though things might be changing on the outside. And like again, it's like the only way to gain perspective from that is to broaden out the lens and see what that means, or to see, like, let's say you do pay attention to tarot readers or astrologers who are telling you what the meaning of it is. And it's like you can't you can't predict what that's going to mean for you as it's coming or as you're in the midst of it. It's something that you can look back upon, I think, and see, where was I at this last time? So it seems like there's this important like light up of transformation going on, but that it's at a pace that you really can't control. But if you try to control it, you might ruin the pace. This concept of walls, it almost looks like the where the fox is bedded down there, it looks like there's a little bit of like fear, or I think that's what happens, is that when things don't seem familiar to us, we sort of retract back inside of our walls. And the pace happens at like so slowly that we don't feel like it's a change. Okay. So, like, when I don't remember what it was. There was oh, I know what it was. The lonely gnome that was coming up in a reading that I had done probably like 2 weeks ago. And it was saying that the gnome had become lonely because he remembered a time from when he was like amidst his community. And then he started like pulling back some and becoming forlorn, and like nobody comes to check in on him anymore, and it's because he kind of pulled himself back and doesn't realize how important his own process is in this, about the transition. It's like you might be pulling yourself in and feeling alone because you've kind of put walls up, but there's a transformation cycle that's going to be going on, and it's to transform out of the past of like where you didn't realize that you were the cause of your own problems. It's like in then there's this projection, and the past projection, that is always what that's always kind of the thing that gets in the way of the transformation going in the healthiest way possible. It's like if you can feel that you're going through a transformation, or you think that everybody around you is going through a transformation, that's why you have to like sort of pull back in the protection of your walls. It's Hang on, because my mind just went blank. My mind just went blank. It's that you can use the eclipse is really meant to change with intention things that you're ready to change, okay? And when I think that we look out in this world and we see that we want to change others, or we want to change things, and we feel like those out external parts are the process. It's like, well, if I could just transition this all somehow, then things would be happier. But it's you have to know by looking back into your past of when you felt most on point and what it was that contributed to that, because that takes intention, that takes real work to make sure that you sort of like what you want to build walls around is your own space of protection, to where you create certain routines, and you have to identify like what is important to you, what do you want to include in your life, and then you have to build the walls around that. And they're walls for love. It's not only for love of the self, but it's for love of how you interact in this world and the relationships that are out there, because you do not want to continue. You do all the work to go through this eclipse, and it is uncomfortable. It can be uncomfortable because you're going at a pace that is like, if you're a snail, you can only go at a snail's pace, right? It's like you can stop or you can get picked up by something that wants to eat you, and you're moving a lot faster, but that's not your own locomotion, right? That's not your own pace. You have to be able to like put yourself into situations so that you know how to get back out of them. Like when I think about raising kids, and they would say, don't ever put a child up on something they can't get up to themselves, because then that's a dangerous situation. It's like you don't put the kids up on the stairs and ask them to go back down. They have to learn the process of like climbing up a little bit and coming back down. And so that's the concept of moving at a proper pace, is so that you don't kind of like scare yourself um into unknown territory and then retreat back in. It's like a snail moves at its pace and it's got a protective shell. And that's like to help protect it because it moves so slowly. And that's part of that mechanism. It's like you don't want to build extra walls for protection, because then you never actually get to move. You're like staying in that cocoon. It's like not coming out of the cocoon. Well, what's going to happen? It's going like if a butterfly just stays in a cocoon and fights nature, I don't know what that process looks like, but it doesn't seem like a healthy one for the butterfly. So you can't use the past to project what's going on in your present moment, okay? You have to be willing to just go at the pace of it and go through the uncomfortable shedding process of transformation. And let's just see what was here. This death card came up in the last reading, but it was the one that was left on top as I left these cards out in order to like come back to them. So what's the death? The Nine of Cups. Oh, so this really wasn't in any different order. So this is still giving us the same message because I didn't shuffle it up. But what really did seem to be important was to look at death and how beautiful it is in this depiction. And death is really, it's like some people fear death, some people welcome it, and it's different at different times of your life. But I think we always want a life that feels more just comfortable. And I don't mean comfortable. I think this is part of the problem, is that when we think of comfortable, we think of it in terms of like human sense of like, what can I bring into my environment or my life to make it more physically comfortable? And it's not really about that. That's not what brings true comfort. What brings true comfort is being able to know who you are through knowing what parts of you are calling to you and saying that they need nourishment. This one wanted to flip for sure. Let's see what that is. The Hermit. That's a process that only you can know. And it's interesting because she's got her forehead on the full moon like this. And like I said, with what looked like an eclipse this morning, it's like the moon isn't as clear as it normally should be when it's a full moon. So there's a shadowy concept going on that we are not allowed to understand yet, because that's just we what's the purpose of life other than to raise the frequency and see what kind of ripple effect that has? It's like, and yet still there's there's pain and there's pleasure and there's these naturally reoccurring cycles. It's not like you level up and you get blasted out into this different version of the world. It's like it's still the world that you have to live in. Now we've got the High Priestess and we've got the crescent moon, and that's exactly what I was feeling this morning, and they're both alone and they're both in this intuitive nature. And it's like this is really the ultimate masculine and feminine energy, even though it's depicted as a woman in this card. It's like these are the sovereign sovereign identities within you, to where you are never meant to feel alone because you have the presence of strength and wisdom within you and intuition. Things can change rapidly in the outside world, and that can shift your feelings. And, it can set you in places of uncertainty and anxiety. But at the bottom now, we've got the sun. So we've got like the moon couldn't be as beautiful as it is without the sun shining on it. And we wouldn't notice its phases if it weren't for, it's like the light of the moon comes from the sun. It's this interaction between the shadow of the earth and the light of the sun. And that is the one thing that puts us on common ground, is that we're all going through these transitions together, yet it's separate because we only experience what's going on in our own internal process. Um, All right. What I'm going to do now is go back to this. The 25, release the dark wound, let love live. Okay. And that's what that is. It's like the eclipse is almost like this dark wound that's going over the moon. Okay. And it gives you a period of shadow to recognize what doesn't feel great or where you kind of feel lonely, where instead of being seen like a full moon, where you're being cast over by this shadow and you're not being seen for your full true self, or you're not feeling yourself within you. You're feeling like this, like something that can't be seen clearly. So let me look that one up. All right. So this is the 25 card, which adds up to be 7. All right. And 7 has a lot of inherent meanings. Mostly it's lucky, right? I think of people thinking of lucky number sevens, like that's a lottery scratch off ticket. And so I think that there is good fortune in being able to do this, to let go of the wounds, because how can letting love in be wrong? It never is. But the process to get there can be painful. If we detach something from its source too soon, trying to force it to become what it is not ready or willing to become, we can unintentionally sap it of its strength and kill it. There's a dark wound in the consciousness of humanity which demands perfection and denies process. If you are thinking of publishers before you even have written a book, if you're comparing your unfinished song idea to the latest best-selling pop release, if you have decided you are not good enough or worthy enough to succeed before you've given it everything you've got and asked for divine help, then this dark wound has you in its grasp. You have to let go of the death grip of perfectionism and let yourself and your ideas live. Love is abundant, creative, and inspiring. It moves us so much more joyously and creatively than fear. You are being asked to honor the path. Oh, I was thinking that was the snail card, but that was pace. Of your own love. What inspires you? What feels exciting, joyful, and perhaps even rather different? Let that live. Release the dark wounding of false belief. There are countless stories of vastly successful artists who very nearly bind the project that was the making of their career because of the despair fostered by their own dark nature. They doubted, they were uncertain. Was their work any good? Was it useless? They struggled to believe in the right of a work to come to life, whether it was accepted, revered, or rejected by others or not. They nearly lost their work to fear. Undoubtedly, there have been many times when this has actually happened, and the work was not saved, not allowed to live. Do not let this happen to you. Whether something is meant to be a commercially oriented venture or a more personal creation of your own for your own therapeutic healing, it must be allowed to be without judgment, without criticism, even without premature evaluation. It must be allowed to be what it is, and only time, love, patience, and attention will reveal it. If you have drawn this card along with the Oracle of Defend to the End, the Worthwhile, or the Oracle of New Birth, guarded vigilantly, then the message above is amplified and you're asked to act on this immediately so that your path can continue under the protection of grace and wisdom, or under the protection and grace of wisdom. If you feel drawn to read the messages of one or both of these additional oracles, whether you have drawn the cards or not, trust your instincts to do that in addition to completing this read. Okay. Um, the messages of this card are also amplified if you have not if you have drawn the oracle of beyond the mind, the heart beats. What do we have? Oh, that's interesting because it was the one right underneath it, and I thought like, oh no, it's not really important to acknowledge this one. So defend to the end worthwhile, guarded vigilantly. Okay. The message of this card can also be amplified if you have drawn the oracle of beyond the mind, the heart beats. If you have not drawn that card, but feel inspired to read its message and complete the healing process for that oracle, trust yourself and do so now. Healing process. Say the declaration below out loud 3 times. Be in your heart and really feel what you're expressing. I now choose of my own free will to release all cellular memories and belief systems based in the dark wound of criticism, judgment, shaming, and fear, so that my creative, loving energy may thrive in a nourishing environment conducive to growth. Through all time and space, through all dimensions of my being, through unconditional love, so be it. I'm going to pause this and I am going to read it 2 more times so that you can read it along in your mind. Okay. I now choose of my own free will to release all cellular memories and belief systems based in the dark wound of criticism, judgment, shaming, and fear, so that my creative, loving energy may thrive in a nourishing environment conducive to growth. Through all time and space, through all dimensions of my being, through unconditional love, so be it. I now choose of my own free will to release all cellular memories and belief systems based in the dark wound of criticism, judgment, shaming, and fear so that my creative, loving energy may thrive in a nourishing environment conducive to growth through all time and space, through all dimensions of my being, through unconditional love. So be it. And that is like so important. I love that that was the card that came up. I love that they've just been sitting here. Look at this. Look at the look of peace, inner trust. And that's what you need right now. Okay. There is like, there's just so much unknown that's going on all the time. So we can't use our projections, our fear projections based on the future unless we want to repeat more of like living a life based in our fears of judgment of others, judgment of like how other people are going to judge us and things like that. It's like if you want transformation, if you want the world to change, if you're praying for change, then you just need to be open and accepting of the fact that things are going to change and it's not going to be a comfortable process because if there's things that are going on that you don't like about the world, as without, so within. And there's going to be a change that has to happen within you so that you can be seen differently. Now, sometimes that happens from sort of like your buttons of authenticity being pushed, where you're pushed at work to like stand up for yourselves and the people around you, where if there's unfair practices going on in the name of money, you know, and they're just like, well, we're downsizing or whatever, you know, it's little things like that, that sometimes opportunities like that come up so that you can be an impactor of change. Okay. And so that's what this is all about. You go at a pace that's comfortable and allow to just be in the discomfort of the transition, but create a cocoon for yourself to be safe within, but you can't stay within that cocoon. What you're supposed to be doing is transforming. It's like that caterpillar turning into goo before it turns into a butterfly. It's not like it's just a caterpillar that grows wings. It's this complete transformation of what it previously was. And if it were worried about like projecting what it's going to be based on its past, it's going to be so far off. It might want to like scramble out of that cocoon and it can't do that. It can't be its next step in the transformation journey. Okay. So I'm going to leave it off at that. I love you. Life is difficult and confusing, but it's filled with love. Okay. And that love can be in your heart. And you just have to keep holding on to that, regardless of how weird things get, regardless of how people see you, regardless of the differentiation between what you feel inside and how you try to communicate that into the outer world and how it can be misrepresented. Hold on to your love so that you don't get caught up in the shadows of these eclipsing portals. Okay. Everything's okay. And we're all going to get through this. All right. I love you. Have a good day. Bye.